Vedant called out to Samira from behind and stopped her. Samira, what were you doing outside? Samira turned around, took a deep breath and calmed herself down. Then she brought a fake smile on her face and looked at Vedant and said, I got an important parcel, I came to pick it up. Vedant looked down at her and said, a servant could have brought the parcel. You didn't have to come. Hearing Vedant's words, Samira started panicking inside. But still she didn't let her fear come on her face. She again said with a fake smile, I was walking in the garden, so I picked it up. Okay, I'm going. I have to call mom and tell her that I got the parcel she sent from the US for me. Saying this, she quickly went inside. Vedant said to himself, why is she behaving a little strange? Saying this, he also went inside while thinking something. At the same time, Ranvir and Mahi both returned home in the evening. Mahi was with Sarika in her room and Ranvir went to the study room after freshening up. Samira came to her room and quickly closed the door and dialed a number from her mobile. On the other hand, after the phone rang, she said, I got the parcel. I got the parcel. It will affect me, right? On the other hand, a girl's voice rang. I don't do anything illegal. And I'm not new in this work. You quickly make my payment. Samira said, okay, I'm transferring the money to the account right now. Saying this, she disconnected the call. Then she started looking at the parcel on the bed, which gave her a devil's smile on her face. Ranvir was sitting in his study room and was working on his laptop. At that time, the door of his room was knocked. Ranvir looked at the laptop screen and said, come in. Hearing this, Samira opened the door of the room and came inside. She was holding a coffee mug in her hand. She went ahead and put the mug on the table and said with a smile, Ranvir, I have made coffee for you. Drink it quickly or it will get cold. Ranvir looked at Samira once and said again while looking at the screen. She asked a servant, why did you bring it? Samira said, when I have made it, I will only bring it. Ranvir picked up a file and said, okay, I'll drink it later. You go. Samira insisted a little and said, Ranvir, the coffee will get cold. Drink it first. Ranvir looked at Samira and as soon as he picked up the coffee mug and put it on his lips, his phone started ringing. When he saw the number on the screen, he put the mug back on the table. Seeing this, Samira's face expression changed. As if she had some important work left to do. She clenched her fists in anger. When Ranvir picked up the phone, hearing what the other person said, his face expression became very serious. And he quickly left the room. Samira left in a fit of anger. Ranvir had just come down to the hall when he found Rudra there. Rudra was also looking a little tense. He asked Ranvir, did you also get a call? Ranvir said, yes, Mr. Hilal. That's when Anita, who was passing by for some work, saw both of them in some tension. So she came to them and asked both of them, what happened? Is there any problem? Ranvir first looked at Rudra and then said to Anita, that Mahi's Baba. Before Ranvir could complete his talk, Mahi's voice came from behind. What happened to Baba? Along with Ranvir and Rudra, Anita's eyes also went there. Mahi was standing with Sarika on the stairs. When she saw the tension on their faces, she came running to them and said in a frightened voice, what happened to Baba? Why are you all so worried? Is he all right? Anita tried to calm her down and said, Mahi, child, calm down. Nothing has happened to your Baba. Mahi, like a child, insisted and said, Mother, I want to go to him. Anita looked at Ranvir and Ranvir said, yes, Mr. Hilal. I will get the car. Mother, you bring Mahi. Sarika asked Rudra in a gesture. So Rudra took her aside and told her slowly, Mahi's Baba is very sick. He is admitted in the hospital right now. And she, listening to Rudra, got teary-eyed. She said to Rudra, we have to go now. I want to meet Baba. And Mahi? We have to take care of Mahi. Rudra nodded and said, yes, we will go now. Saying this, he went out. After some time, Ranvir's car stopped outside the hospital. Behind it, Rudra's car also reached. Mahi and Anita were in Ranvir's car. Sarika and Vedant were with Rudra. They all reached to the floor where Mahi's Baba was admitted in the ICU. Outside the ward, Maheshji and Nirmalaji were standing with tension. Mahi ran and hugged her uncle. She cried and said, "Uncle, what has happened to Baba? Will he be fine?" Maheshji said, "Child, be strong. Everything will be fine." Mahi wiped her tears and said, "Where is Baba?" Maheshji told her lovingly, "Child, no one is allowed to go to the ICU. But you can see your Baba from outside." Saying this, he took her to a glass window outside the ICU. When Mahi saw her Baba surrounded by machines, she placed her hand on the window and said in a weeping voice, "Baba, your Mahi is calling you. Please get up." Mahi stood there for a long time and kept looking at her Baba. She felt that if she moved from here even for a moment, her Baba would go away from her. It was quite late at night. Ranvir explained everything to everyone and sent them home. Now only Ranvir and Mahi were left in the hospital. Mahi was still standing there like this. Ranvir went to her and placed her hand on her shoulder and said, "Mahi, take rest for a while. You will fall sick yourself." Mahi said without looking at her, "No, I am fine." Ranvir turned her towards herself and put her cheeks in her palms and said, "Mahi, if you fall sick, your Baba will also not like it. It is quite late at night. You have not eaten anything? So, eat something." Mahi nodded her head and said, "No, I do not want to eat anything. I want to stay here." Ranvir sat her on the chair and said, "You will fall sick like this. Then your Baba will scold me. Why did I not take care of Mahi? Do you want him to scold me?" Mahi nodded her head. Ranvir said to her lovingly, "Then you will eat food, right?" Mahi nodded her head like a small child. Ranvir made her stand and brought her to a room on the same floor. That floor was a VIP floor where some private rooms were also made. After entering the room, Ranvir called someone and came to the room to eat. Ranvir made Mahi sit on her lap and fed her. After eating, Ranvir wiped her face with a tissue paper and washed her hands. Mahi was whispering with her head down. Ranvir went to her and hugged her. Mahi hugged Ranvir and said, "Ranvir, Baba will get well, right? No one is letting me meet him. I am scared." Ranvir said to her, "Mahi, everything will be fine." Mahi raised her head and looked at Ranvir and asked, "What happened to him? Is he all right? I spoke to him yesterday." Ranvir did not understand what to answer Mahi. But she did not feel good to hide the truth from Mahi. But Mahi was very scared, so she could not tell her the truth. Ranvir was just patting Mahi's head. Soon, Mahi fell asleep on her chest. She was very tired, so she slept soundly. When Ranvir felt Mahi's breath heavy, she laid her on the bed. Then she got a call from Vedant. Vedant and Rudra left the house and came back. Ranvir covered Mahi with a blanket and kissed her forehead and came out of the room. Vedant and Rudra were waiting for Ranvir outside the ICU. Vedant asked Ranvir about Mahi. Ranvir said, "I have fed her and put her to sleep. She is very scared now." All three were talking when a nurse who was taking care of Mahi's father came out of the ICU. Ranvir stopped her and asked, "Nurse, what happened? Why are you getting scared?" She was saying so much when all the doctors came and went inside. The nurse followed them. After some time, the nurse came out and said, "The patient has regained consciousness but he does not have much time. Call his family as soon as possible." After saying this, she went back inside. Rudra told Ranvir, "I will inform at home." He started mixing the room. Vedant told Ranvir, "Let Mahi meet her father once." Hearing Vedant's words, Ranvir was worried. She could not understand what to do. How can she tell a daughter that her father does not have much time? Vedant understood her problem. He put his hand on her shoulder and said, "You will have to do this. Ranvir looked at Vedant and moved towards the room where Mahi was sleeping. Mahi was sleeping on the bed, but her face was full of stress. As soon as she put her hand on Mahi's head, Mahi slowly opened her eyes. Seeing Ranvir, Mahi quickly held her hand and said, "Ranvir, what happened? Is your father all right?" Ranvir said, "You wanted to meet your father, didn't you?" Ranvir picked her up and said, "Come on, meet your father." Mahi quickly put her dupatta on her shoulders and came out of the room with Ranvir. Ranvir took her to the ICU room. Seeing her father surrounded by such machines, Mahi's feet trembled. But in time, Ranvir saved her from falling and took her to her father's bed. Tears were flowing from Mahi's eyes. She sat on the chair and brought her father's hand on her cheek and said, "Father, get up. Look, your daughter is crying. She needs you." Mahi was speaking, but her father was unconscious. How could he answer her? Suddenly, the machine started beeping and Gangadhar started breathing heavily. Mahi got scared and said, "What happened to him?" The nurse told her to go out, but Mahi didn't want to go out. So Ranvir forced her to go out. All the family members came out of the ICU and everyone got to know about Gangadhar's condition. In a while, the doctor came out and said in a serious tone, "I'm sorry, we couldn't save him." As soon as the doctor said this, Mahi lost her consciousness. Ranvir held her in her arms. How will Mahi live without her father? Will they be able to make Mahi understand? What will happen to Sameera next? To know more, listen to this story only on Lovepulse Diaries. In the morning, at Mahesh ji's house, all the preparations for Gangadhar ji's last journey were done. Anita ji brought Mahi down for her father's last darshan. Mahi was very unhappy. Till now, not a single drop of tears had come out of her eyes. Perhaps, she was still not able to accept the fact that her father had left her. When Nirmala ji saw Mahi, she brought her to Gangadhar ji's body. Mahi was sitting next to her father and looking at him. Everyone was worried about Mahi. Everyone wanted Mahi to cry and let out her sadness. Mahi was in her thoughts. She was remembering her childhood, where she would often insist on coming to her father's lap. She would insist on going to the fair with her father. Her father would often feed her with his own hands. This voice was echoing in her ears. "Baba, you will always be with me, won't you?" "Yes, my child, I will always be with my Mahi." Then, Mahi's ears heard Pandit ji's voice. It was time for the last journey of Parthiv day. Mahi looked up and looked around. As if she had woken up from a deep sleep. She looked at her father's body. Mahi woke him up and said, "Baba, why are you sleeping here? Get up and come to your room. You will catch a cold. Get up." Then she looked around and said, "Why are you all crying? My father is not well. Let him sleep." Then Nirmala ji and Anita ji started taking care of him. Nirmala ji hugged him and said, "Mahi, your father has left." Nirmala ji's heart was breaking. But this was the only way to get Mahi out of such a shocking state. Mahi got away from Nirmala ji. She put her head on her father's chest and started crying. She tried to lift him up and said, "Baba, get up. Tell everyone that nothing has happened to you. You had said that you will never leave me." Pandit ji explained to her and said, "Son, birth and death are in the hands of God. Now let them go for the last journey, so that they can attain salvation." Mahi grabbed her father and said stubbornly like a child, "No, I will not let my father go anywhere. Baba, get up. Tell them that you can never leave your daughter. Baba, I am your good daughter. I listen to everything you say." Seeing Mahi in this condition, Ranbir's heart was bursting with pain. Today his eyes were wet. Today, seeing a daughter crying for her father, everyone's eyes were wet. Anita ji and Nirmala ji tried to get Mahi away from her father's body. Because now they had to go for the last journey. It was very difficult for them to handle Mahi. At the behest of Pandit ji, all the men of the house came forward and gave their shoulders to Mahi. Mahi was crying and begging them not to take her father. Finally, her father left his Mahi and his daughter and went for his last journey. 15 days later. Today, 15 days had passed since Mahi's father had left. Mahi's tears had dried up. After Gangadhar ji's ritual, Mahi stayed at Mahesh ji's house for a few days. She often used to sit in her father's room. A few days ago, she returned to Kapoor mansion. During this time, Ranbir always stayed with her. Everyone was taking care of Mahi in Kapoor mansion. No one left Mahi alone even for a moment. In the evening, when Ranbir came home from office, he asked Ruhi about Mahi. Ruhi told him that she was in her aunt's room. Ranbir kept his bag on the sofa and walked towards his mother's room. Ranbir opened the door and came inside. Mahi was sleeping on Anita ji's lap. Anita ji was lovingly caressing her head. When she saw Ranbir, she put her finger on her lips and asked him to keep quiet. Ranbir quietly sat next to her. Anita ji slowly put her head on the pillow and came out of the blanket. Ranbir started caressing Mahi's head while sitting next to her. In these few days, Mahi's face had turned pale. He kept looking at Mahi's face for a long time. He never wanted to see his Mahi like this. Then he heard Mahi's wheezing. Mahi started wheezing in her sleep. Tears were falling from her eyes on the pillow. Ranbir wiped her tears with his fingers and caressed her head, lovingly calmed her down and said, "Everything will be fine. I am with you." After a while, Mahi calmed down. Ranbir kissed her forehead. After a while, Mahi opened her eyes. When she saw Ranbir in front of her, her eyes became moist again. Ranbir was still sitting next to her. He was watching something on his phone. When he felt some movement from Mahi, he looked at Mahi. Seeing Mahi's moist eyes, Ranbir wiped her tears and hugged her. Mahi said with a weeping voice, "Everyone says the truth. I am a bad daughter. That's why first mom and now dad left me. Dad lied to me that he won't leave me." Ranbir told her lovingly, "You are his very good and lovely daughter. And your dad didn't leave you and go anywhere. Your mom was alone there, that's why he went to her. And now both of them are in your heart. If they see you crying and sad, they will also feel sad. Do you want them to feel sad?" Mahi looked at Ranbir with moist eyes. And said with her tears, "No, Dad shouldn't feel sad. And Mom too. Dad is with my mom now. I won't cry now. Otherwise my dad will feel sad." Ranbir hugged Mahi tightly. After a while, he brought Mahi to his room. He also ordered dinner in the same room. Mahi didn't want to eat at all. But Ranbir insisted and fed her. Mahi came to the bed after eating. Ranbir went towards the balcony. He smoked his cigarette. And started to sniff him. After a while, he came inside. Mahi was sleeping on the bed. Ranbir came next to her and lied down. And brought Mahi to himself. Mahi also slept on Ranbir's chest. Ranbir looked at Mahi's hair. And kissed a baby on her lips. And carried her in his arms and slept. If you have your loved ones with you, you get the courage to face the biggest of sorrows. Gradually, everything started to become normal. Mahi also started to come in her normal life. As they say, if time gives you sorrow, it also gives you the courage to bear it. It's been a month since Mahi's dad left. It wasn't that Mahi didn't miss her dad. She still misses her dad. But only in good memories. Those memories used to bring a smile on her face. She didn't cry. So that her dad doesn't feel sad. She always felt him close to her. She wanted her dad to see her smiling wherever he is. The rest of the family, they took care of Mahi in this sad moment. Priya, Tina and Rohi took care of her like a good friend. They used to spend time with Mahi. And used to bring a smile on Mahi's face. Vedanta and Priya's smile used to make Mahi laugh. Ranbir's loving care always made her realize that I am with you. And I will always be with you. When there is so much love and support, a person comes out of great sorrow. Samira was drinking at the club's counter. She was waiting for someone. Then a boy came and sat next to her. She looked at Samira and ordered a drink for herself. Samira took a sip from her drink and said, "Why did you take so long to come?" She was talking to the girl sitting in front of her. But she was not looking at her. She was acting as if she didn't know her. The boy said while drinking his drink, "I have been waiting for you for a long time." Saying this, a smirk came on her face. Samira said, "Stop your nonsense and tell me, how far is the work?" The girl looked at the girls dancing in front of her and said, "Just understand, half the work is done." Samira got a little irritated and asked, "I want the work done as soon as possible. I can't wait any longer." The boy looked at her and said, "You tell me, how far have you reached?" Hearing this, Samira got angry. She grabbed her glass and said, "I will soon reach my destination. What is mine will remain mine. And I will soon throw away the thorn in my path." Saying this, she emptied the glass in one breath. In the afternoon, Mahi had come to a mall with Ruhi. She didn't want to come at all. But Ruhi forced her to come with her. Ruhi had also called Priya and Tina there. Ruhi also had to buy some important things for herself. Ruhi was busy shopping. And Mahi was getting a little bored there. That's why she was spending time window shopping in another store. Mahi was busy looking at the things there, while someone else was staring at her. Seeing Mahi alone in the store, she got a frown on her face. Mahi was just coming out of the store when she collided with the person in front of her, which ruined her balance. She fell down. Before that, the man pulled Mahi's hand, which Mahi straightened from her chest. Mahi looked up and saw that Ankit was standing in front of her, who was looking at her. He showed concern and asked, "Mahi, are you okay? Are you hurt anywhere?" Mahi first took care of herself and quickly said, getting away from Ankit, "Yes, Ankit, I'm fine." Ankit said, "Sorry, I was in a hurry, so I couldn't see you." Mahi smiled lightly and said, "No, it's okay. Sometimes it happens by mistake. By the way, you here?" Ankit smiled and said, "Yes, I live alone, so I came to get some stuff for the house." Mahi asked, "Do you live here alone?" Ankit got a little sad and said, "I'm alone in this world too. I don't have parents. I was the only son of my parents. So, now that they are gone, I'm all alone." Mahi was sad to hear this. She consoled him and said, "Ankit, I'm your friend, so how did you get alone?" Hearing Mahi's words, Ankit smiled. He smiled and said, "Yes, you are my only friend." Then he thought and said, "Mahi, if you don't mind, can I say something?" Mahi said, "Yes, tell me." Is this a trick of Ankit that he keeps bumping into Mahi? Or was Ankit following Mahi? What will happen when Ranvir finds out about Ankit? To know more, keep listening to Oh Baby Story only on Love Pulse Diaries. Ankit hesitated a little and said, "It's my birthday next week. I have been alone on my birthday for many years. But this time I have a friend like you. So I want to celebrate my birthday with you. Are you on my birthday?" Saying this, Ankit stopped and started looking at Mahi's face carefully. Mahi thought to herself, "How can I say yes like this? Ranvir must be very angry. He doesn't like it at all. He doesn't like me talking to any girl. I have befriended her. But Ranvir will never understand this. When he gets angry, he doesn't listen to anyone." Seeing Mahi lost in his own thoughts, Ankit said, waving his hand in front of her face, "Mahi, where are you lost? I am asking you something." Mahi came to her senses after hearing Ankit's voice and smiled and said, "Nowhere." Then she hesitated a little and said, "Ankit, I want to come. But..." Saying this, she stopped. She couldn't understand what excuse she should make to refuse. Because she knew Ranvir won't let her come. On the contrary, If he finds out about Ankit and Mahi's friendship, then he will be very angry. Seeing Mahi's hesitation, Ankit said sadly, "No problem. I was expecting a little more. In fact, I was very happy this time that I have someone with whom I can share my happiness. But I don't want to put any pressure on you. It's okay." Saying this, Ankit left. Mahi was feeling very bad for him. She took a deep breath and she also left. After shopping, they were very hungry. So she went to a restaurant. There they ordered something to eat and started talking to each other. Mahi's attention was on Ankit's words. She was feeling very bad for him. In a while, his order also arrived. The four of them ate their food and then left for home. Kapoor mentioned Ranvir came home from office early in the evening. He asked a maid to get a glass of juice and went to his room. The maid went to the kitchen to get juice and she had already put juice in the glass. That's when Samira came there. Samira said to her in a very arrogant way, "Give me cold water now." The maid listened to her and went to the fridge to get water for her. Samira looked at the maid with her eyes and quietly put a pill in the glass of juice. Then quickly mixed it in the juice with a spoon. Samira did this very quickly. As soon as the maid brought a glass of water to her, Samira pointed at the juice and said very carelessly, "For whom are you taking this?" The maid said, "For Ranvir, sir." Samira said, "Oh, okay, go." Saying this, Samira started drinking water. But her eyes were on the maid who was going out of the kitchen. As soon as the maid came out of the kitchen, Samira put the glass on the counter. And a devil smile came on her lips. When the maid reached the room, the door of the room was open. She came in and put the glass of juice on the table and said, "Sir, juice." Ranvir came in from the balcony and said, "Okay, keep it." As soon as the maid turned to go, Ranvir asked her, "Where is Mahi?" The maid said with her head bowed, "Mahi ma'am has gone somewhere with Rohi ma'am." Ranvir said, "Okay, you go." The maid came out of the room. Ranvir picked up the glass of juice and started drinking it. After taking a sip, he felt the taste of the juice was a little different. He ignored this and quickly emptied the glass. After this, he went to the study room. After a while, Mahi and Rohi returned home. The maid told Mahi that Ranvir was in the study room at that time. Mahi thought that Ranvir might be doing some important work at the office. So, she didn't think it was necessary to disturb him. And she came to her room. Ranvir really had some work at the office, which he had to complete today. So, he ordered dinner in the study room. Mahi also had dinner and came to her room. When Ranvir drank the juice, he was feeling a little strange. But he ignored this and was busy with his work. It was quite late at night, but Ranvir had not yet come to the room. Mahi went to the study room to call him. But Ranvir had told her that he had a lot of work today, so she would be late. So, Mahi came back to her room. She sat on the bed and started waiting for him. She was thinking about today's conversation. But she didn't want to think much about it. Ranvir was busy with his work. Just now, the tone of his phone rang. At first, Ranvir ignored it and kept working on his laptop. But when the same tone rang 2 to 3 times, Ranvir's attention went to his phone. He picked up his phone and saw that the message was coming from an unknown number. He opened all the messages. As soon as the message was opened, Ranvir's eyes turned red with anger. His grip on his phone tightened. Ranvir got up from his chair in anger and went to his room. When Ranvir came to his room, Mahi was sleeping with her headdress. Seeing Mahi, Ranvir's face expression became dark. He went closer to her and started looking at her face in anger. He extended his hand towards Mahi. But seeing Mahi's innocence while sleeping, his hand stopped there. For a few moments, his facial expression softened. He thought to himself, "No, you can't do this." Thinking this, he pulled his hand back and stood facing her. He was very angry at this time. He was trying his best to control his anger. He didn't want to hurt Mahi in anger. So, he picked up the car key and left the room. Ranvir was driving at full speed on the road. He had a bottle of liquor in one hand with which he was drinking liquor every now and then. His eyes had turned red due to drunkenness and anger. Those pics were coming in front of his eyes which had been sent by someone from an unknown number a while ago. Those pics had photos of Mahi and Ankit which had been clicked by someone in the mall. Those photos were taken from the angle that Mahi was in Ankit's arms. Although Ankit's face was not visible in this photo. But the pics were taken in such a way that it looked as if Mahi was hugging that boy. Ranvir was not ready to believe this. So, he left the house. He stopped the car at a deserted place and came out of the car and broke the bottle in anger. At that time, his eyes had become very dangerous. He said in his drunken voice, "You can't do this. You only love me. Only me." But whenever he was remembering those pics, his anger was increasing. He took out another bottle of liquor from his car and sat on the bonnet of the car. Then he started drinking the bottle with his lips. As if he wanted to end his anger, as if he wanted to be so drunk that he didn't remember anything. Being too drunk, Ranvir slept there on the bonnet. Mahi was sleeping in her room. At that time, there was a calmness on her face. She was unaware that a very big storm was going to come in her life which would change her life. Morning time. Half the light from the window fell on Mahi's face. As the sun rose, Mahi's eyes slowly opened. She kept sleeping like this all night. Because of this, her neck was aching. Mahi looked around the room. She realized that Ranvir didn't come to the room all night. She thought to herself, was Ranvir in the study room all night? Maybe he was busy. Saying this, Mahi got up and went to the washroom. After some time, she got ready and came down. She took black coffee and breakfast for Ranvir and went to the study room. She thought maybe Ranvir must have slept there while working. Mahi opened the door of the study room and went inside. But seeing Ranvir not there, Mahi got worried. On the other side, morning sun fell on her face and Ranvir opened his eyes. He was still lying on the bonnet with one hand on his head. His other hand was hanging below the bonnet. That road was completely deserted at night. But now there were a few people who were looking at Ranvir with strange eyes. Because Ranvir was not even wearing a shirt at that time. Actually, he was feeling a different anxiety at night. That's why he took off his shirt. But it didn't matter to him how people were looking at him. Ranvir jumped off the bonnet and lifted his hands and took a bow. He was feeling a lot of pain in his head. He picked up his shirt and wore it on the front seat of the car. He came to the driving seat and sat down. His head was bursting with pain. He sat still on the steering wheel. That's when he remembered what happened last night, which increased his headache. He hit his hand on the steering wheel, then his eyes became deep. He started the car and drove off at full speed. Mahi was trying Ranvir's number again and again. But his number was switched off. She was worried about Ranvir. She asked Rudra and Vedant about him. But they didn't know where Ranvir was. Because Rudra knew that there was no such meeting and there was no such work that Ranvir should stay out of the house all night. Still, he reassured Mahi that he would find out and tell her where Ranvir was. Mahi was climbing the stairs to her room when someone held her hand tightly. Mahi turned and saw Ranvir in front of her. Mahi was surprised. "Ranvir." Mahi said something else, but still Ranvir pulled her hand and went to his room. Mahi found Ranvir's behavior very strange. Ranvir brought Mahi to the room and locked the door. Mahi didn't understand why Ranvir was doing this. She asked Ranvir, "Ranvir, where were you? I have been trying your phone for a long time. Your number is also switched off." Ranvir was standing facing Mahi and he was in a dilemma. He heard Mahi's voice and turned to her. He grabbed Mahi by the shoulder and asked her, "Mahi, is there something that you are hiding from me?" Mahi and Ranvir had a different feeling in their eyes. She was not able to understand Ranvir's question, that why did Ranvir ask this? When Mahi didn't answer for a long time, Ranvir started getting angry at her. He felt that Mahi is not saying anything to hide the truth. She grabbed Mahi's shoulder and said angrily, I have asked you something, Mahi. Is there something that you are hiding from me? Seeing Ranvir's angry eyes, Mahi started getting scared. And because of the fear, her voice was not coming out of her mouth. This time, Ranvir shouted and asked, I am asking you something. Answer me, damn it. Mahi got scared and said, No, I am not hiding anything. Ranvir's face expression became dark. He said in a different threatening tone, It would be better for you not to hide anything from me. Because if I ever come to know that you are cheating on me, then it will not be good for you. Got it? Mahi quickly nodded her head. What is going to happen, Samira? Is Ankit also involved with Samira? Will Samira be able to create distance between Ranvir and Mahi? To know more, keep listening to Oh Baby only on Love Pulse Diaries. Ranvir looked into Mahi's eyes with his deep eyes and he left her in a jiffy and went to the washroom. Mahi was shocked at her place. She didn't understand why Ranvir asked her such a question. Today, she was looking at Ranvir in anger after a long time. She thought to herself, has Ranvir come to know about me and Ankit's friendship? And he is taking it the wrong way. But Ankit and I are just friends and I haven't even met him much. Then what could it be? Mahi was thinking something else and then her door got knocked. When Mahi opened the door, the maid was standing in front of her. The maid said with her head bowed, Sarika ma'am has called you to her room. Mahi said with her head bowed, Okay, you go, I am coming. Hearing this, the maid left. Mahi looked at the washroom and left the room. When Ranbir came to the room with the shower, he didn't see Mahi anywhere. After taking the shower, Ranbir was feeling much better than before. He got ready to go to the office. As soon as Ranbir left his room, Mahi also came out of Sarika's room. As soon as they met, Mahi stopped him and said, Ranbir, I want to talk to you. But Ranbir replied a little rude. I have to go to the office now, let's talk later. Saying this, he left from there. Ranbir's departure hurt Mahi a lot. Her eyes got wet. She said with all her heart, Why are you doing this to me, Ranbir? What wrong have I done? Samira, who was standing on the bed, was watching all this. Seeing this behavior for Ranbir's Mahi, Samira was feeling very good. She said with a devilish smile, Now Ranbir will throw Mahi out of this house and out of his life. The whole day passed like this. Mahi was very sad today. She was getting hurt by Ranbir's such behavior. Anita had also noticed this. Mahi is a little sad, so she came to Mahi's room. At this time, Mahi was arranging her clothes for Ranbir in the cupboard. Anita saw Mahi working and said lovingly, Mahi, you finish your work, then I want to talk to you. Mahi heard Anita's voice and looked at her. And closed the cupboard and said, That's it, Ma, my work is done, you sit. Then Anita sat on the sofa and told Mahi to sit next to her. Come, sit next to me. Mahi sat next to her and said, Yes Ma, tell me, what do you want to talk about? Was there any work? Anita said, No son, there was no work. But for a while she stopped and held her hand and said, Mahi, did you and Ranbir have any talk? Mahi said with her eyes down, No Ma, nothing like that happened. Why are you asking like this? Anita said, Mahi, I don't call you my daughter, I also accept it. And son, this is seen by a mother's eyes, that there is some tension between my two children. Look Mahi, a daughter can share everything with her mother. Because a mother is a good friend of her daughter. Hearing Anita's words, Mahi became emotional. She started bowing her head and sighing. So Anita hugged her from her chest. And said while shaking her head, Son, why are you crying? Did Ranbir say anything? You tell me, I will scold him well. Mahi said while crying, Ma, I don't know why he is angry with me. When I didn't do anything. He is not even talking to me properly. Anita took Mahi away a little. and put her hand on her cheek and said, maybe there is some problem related to business. You talked to Ranbir once. Mahi said with a long voice, Ma, I tried to talk to him. But he is ignoring me. He is doing something which I don't like at all. Anita said while lovingly patting her head, you don't cry, I will talk to Ranbir. Mahi wiped her tears and nodded her head. Then Anita said, I have come to tell you something else. Yes, Ma, tell me. Anita said, we all have to go to a party this evening. The party is of our family friends. So everyone has to go. Mahi said, Ma, I don't feel like it. You all go. Anita said while explaining to her, son, they are our very close friends. So everyone has to go. Mahi had no choice but to listen to Anita. She nodded her head in agreement. Anita smiled and said, you wear the dress which I will send. I will send all your stuff to the maid. Saying this, Anita left. Evening time. Anita sent Mahi's dress and matching jewelry to her room. Mahi waited for Ranbir till evening. She called Ranbir many times. But Ranbir didn't pick up his call. Mahi messaged Ranbir and started getting ready. Mahi wore a red net sari today, which was slightly shimmery, and the neck of her designer blouse was quite deep from the back. Mahi's fair skin was shining more in this red sari. She had curled her long hair and also did a light makeup. After getting dressed up, Mahi was looking quite attractive. Mahi was getting ready and waiting for Ranbir. She was checking her phone again and again, that Ranbir might have replied to her message. Then the door of her room was knocked. Mahi opened the door and the maid was standing in front of her. The maid said to her, Ma'am, your elder ma'am has sent you downstairs and has said that Ranbir sir will meet you there at the party, because he will get ready in the office and go straight there. Saying this, the maid went back. When Mahi heard that instead of coming here, Ranbir is going straight to the party, then her eyes got wet. But now she was also getting a little angry. She said with all her heart, you are so angry that you don't even want to go anywhere with me. Okay, now even I won't talk. When I don't have any mistake, then why should I talk? Mahi reached the hotel with all the family members where the party was held. By the way, she was also angry with Ranbir. But still she was waiting for him. Anita ji said to Mahi, Ranbir might have got stuck in some meeting. That's why he is joining the party from the office. This happens many times. You don't worry. But Mahi's eyes were fixed on the main entrance again and again, where everyone was enjoying the party. Mahi was quietly sitting on the sofa and watching everyone. She had the whole family with her. But still she was feeling very lonely. There was someone else too, whose eyes were fixed on Mahi for a long time. That was Deep Kashyap, who was a #1 entertainer. And his entertainment talks were famous among the people of the city. When he saw Mahi sitting alone, he sat next to her and started drinking his drink. Mahi was finding her eyes very strange. As soon as she started leaving, she said in a strange way, what happened? Didn't you like my company? Before Mahi could answer, someone else answered. Now it is your bad luck that the people of a decent family neither like you nor your company. Hearing the voice, Mahi looked that way. There was Vedant standing in front, who was staring at Deep. Vedant held Mahi's hand and took her with him. By doing this, Deep got very angry. And with anger, his hand got stuck on the glass of his drink. Vedant took Mahi a little far and left her hand and said, why were you sitting there alone? And where is Ranbir? Hearing Ranbir's name, Mahi's eyes got wet. And she didn't want Vedant to see the wetness of her eyes. So she looked the other way and said, he had some important work, so he will take some time to come. Vedant may not have been able to see the wetness of Mahi's eyes, but he certainly felt the sadness on her face. He asked Mahi again, are you okay? Mahi said with a fake smile, "Yes Vedant, I am fine." Then a girl came there, who was wearing a black dress. She held the mic in her hand and said with a smile, "I hope all of you are enjoying this party. Now we have to do something to make this moment even more fun. For which all of you have to come to the dance floor and do couple dance. But with a mask. And your couple will be with the one whose mask will be like your mask." As soon as the announcement was made, the two girls who were wearing the same dress started giving masks to everyone. Mahi didn't want to take the mask. But on Sarika's request, she took the mask. Everyone took their masks and came to the floor with the couple. Mahi was standing there with the mask on her eyes. But now she wanted to cry. Because even after waiting for a long time, Ranvir didn't come. Tears flowed from her wet eyes and started coming on her cheeks. That's when Mahi felt the touch of cold hands on her stomach. Mahi recognized that touch. She closed her eyes and started feeling the fragrance of Ranvir. Mahi opened her eyes and looked around. She saw Ranvir's eyes. He was looking at Mahi from behind the mask with his deep eyes. Mahi was like being sucked into his eyes. She was looking at Ranvir without blinking. She felt like she was seeing a dream. That's when Ranvir held her hand and brought her to the floor. As soon as she came to the floor, the rest of the people who were dancing came down. Then Ranvir pointed to change the music. Mahi, who had been lost in Ranvir's eyes for a long time, now remembered Ranvir's behavior. Remembering this, Mahi started getting angry at Ranvir. As soon as she turned around and got down from the floor, Ranvir grabbed her hand and took her with him. He clasped his hand on Mahi's waist. He took his lips close to her ears and said in his magnetic voice, "Don't even try to do this." Mahi was surprised to see Ranvir's eyes. She was thinking that it is far from convincing me. Instead, they are threatening me. Now her anger increased on Ranvir. She was looking at Ranvir with anger. Then she tried to remove Ranvir's grip from her waist and said, "You." But before she could say anything else, the music was on. Mahi tried to leave the floor again. Then Ranvir pulled her and brought her close to him. He held her hands in his hands and clasped them on her stomach. Mahi's back was now on Ranvir's chest. Ranvir was now bowing down to her neck and feeling the scent of Mahi's body, which made her unconscious as always. Ranvir, who was still intoxicated in the scent of Mahi, he remembered the picture in his mind. He remembered it and his grip became tight on Mahi's waist. He turned Mahi around and did it in front of him. And now his dance was less of a dance and more of a punishment for Mahi. Mahi was also having pain in her waist, because of which tears began to fall in her eyes. Mahi was now feeling very helpless, because Ranvir was venting his anger on her through dance. Mahi was looking at Ranvir with pain in her eyes, as if she wants to tell Ranvir about her pain with her own eyes. Will this distance between Ranvir and Mahi be able to be removed? What is Samira going to do next? Will the family be able to know Samira's dirty intentions? To know more, keep listening to Oh Baby only on Love Pulse Diaries.